Okay, so hello again. We're starting the lecture. I think everything is okay for screen sharing and microphone. So this morning we're starting a new subject. And what I'd like to do, in fact, is very quickly go over just mention the things that we have done so far since the start of this module, so that we better understand what's going on exactly and what's the next thing we'll do. So if I go back to the very beginning of the lecture notes in this module, we started with Telnet, right? That was the first service we did, Telnet, followed by SSH. So these are services or protocols that provide a remote connection to a machine. From one machine to the other, you open a remote session. Then, of course, SCP, SFTP are part of SSH, and these are file transfer operations between computers. IPv6, we did this along the way. Then we did DNS, which is the protocol to resolve host names to IPs. This was followed by routing. Which is to provide connectivity between computers in different networks, different IP ranges. And then yesterday we did DHCP, which is used to assign IPs automatically to client computers, IP configuration. So why did I go over this first thing this morning? Is to make sure that we're not confused about the different services. There are many protocols and services we're studying in this module. It's important in the end to know exactly what each one of these services does. Otherwise, you get confused between all these protocols. So what we're studying this morning is another protocol or another service called Samba, which is for file and printer sharing. So we haven't done so far this with Linux, have we? We haven't seen how to share folders or printers. Remote access is not about sharing. DNS, DHCP, routing, all these things are not about sharing. Each one has a specific function. So now we're about to look at how to share folders and printers. The name of the protocol is Samba. That's a user-friendly name, let's say, but the actual protocol name is SMB. And in fact, when you share files or printers in Windows, it's the exact same protocol. It's compatible, the same SMB protocol. It's just in Windows, it's done in a more user-friendly way, and you're not even aware of the name of the protocol most of the time. You just right-click a folder and share it, or you go to the printer installation wizard, or afterwards in the properties of the printer, and you share it. So you're not aware which protocol you're using there. But it is the same SMB protocol. If you go deeper in Windows, I can show you later if we have time. You can see in the properties of sharing somewhere in the Windows services that it is the SMB protocol being used there. All right, so it's a compatible protocol, and that's also why we can access, as you'll see, shares that we're going to create on CentOS. We can access them from Windows as well. So file and printer sharing. So the first thing, of course, is to have a Samba server. So the machine on which objects will be shared will be referred to as the Samba server. It is the one providing the services. While then client machines, Samba clients, will be connecting to those shares and using the contents of those shares or sending documents to the printer. So first we have to set up the Samba server then. As usual, if you have any questions and anything not clear, I'll check every once in a while. This is my Samba printer. This was also my DHCP server yesterday. All right. So first we have to make sure you have the right packages as usual. So these are by default installed on a CentOS machine, CentOS server, but let's check them. So on this Samba server, if I do RPM -Q Samba, so this is the server package. Okay, this is the package that the machine needs in order to share folders or printers. And there's also the client package, which is called Samba client. It's hyphen. So this is the client package. So on the server, you need at least the server package, typically also the client. So let's say on the server, we need both. On the client machine, technically we don't need the Samba package, we need only Samba client. But again, on CentOS machines, especially when you choose a server option like we did, both are installed by default. But let's understand it well. So the Samba package is the one that will let you act the Samba server by sharing folders and printers, while the client package is the one that will let the machine connect to a network share as a client. All right. Now, another step we need to do here before we can create and use shares, I think I have in my lecture notes here, yes, add users to the Samba database. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that the Samba protocol in Linux, at least, needs its own database of users. First, we have the password file, right? When you check the etc password file, this is the existing database of users on this machine. However, Samba does not directly use these accounts. In order for a user account to participate in Samba, it has to be added to a Samba database of users. That's easy to do. Now, first, let me check the existing database. Initially, your Samba database will be empty, but to check if there are any users in your Samba database, you do the command pdb edit -L, L to list. So this command displays the existing Samba database. We are on the server, right? This is the Samba server. See, we have already added a number of users here, but initially this database will be empty. Even root will not be there. See, I see root here because I've added root, but initially nobody will be in the database. So how to add a user to the database? Now, let's say, let me check my password file again. I'll pick a user from my password file who's not presently in the database, and I will add him. So in my password file, right? I'll put user 250 there, user 621. I don't think I use 621 in my database right now. You see, I don't have user 621 here, so I will add user 621 to my Samba database. Let's clear the screen again. So this is my existing Samba database. I have user 621 in my password file, and I will add him to this database. So for that, you do the command smb password -A user 621 -A to add. So this way, you add user 621, which is in the password file, you add this user to your Samba database. So this user will be able to participate in Samba connections, connecting to a share using Samba. So it will ask you to type and retype the password. And now, happened here, it didn't add it. C621. Here we go. It's sorry, it's showing it on top of the list. I was just looking towards the end. So it's right here. It added user 621. So any questions on this, how to add a user to the Samba database? All right, I'll just give you a little question. I'll not give the answer now. Find out how to remove a user from database. I just showed how to add the user. What if you want, let's say I'd like to remove user 708 from the database. How to do that? So I have user 708 here, right? So I'll give you the answer maybe after the break or next time around, because yeah, I'll give you a chance to look for it. So next week I'll give you the answer to this, but find out it's not a big deal. I just want to encourage you to do personal research. See, we're getting close to the project course at the end of this semester. It will be a lot of personal research there. So simple question. I've shown how to add a user to the Samba database. Find out how to remove a user from a database. Either you can check it online or you can check the man page of the SMB password command. And find out and then try it, okay? See if it works. Add the user to the database, remove it from the database, see if it works. All right? No questions yet? So now, the next thing is to start the service. I am still on the server. To start a service with just a system control, maybe for me it's running already, I'll check status. And the name of the service is SMB. This is the server service. It is the service by which you're able to share objects like photos or printers on this machine. It's running because I've started already, but by default, initially it doesn't run. It doesn't start at boot time by default. So the first time you'll have to start the service by typing start SMB, system control start SMB. Now there's an interesting feature here. As soon as you start a service, without even doing any further configuration, you can verify it works, because when the service runs, Samba by default makes available through sharing user home folders. Maybe I will best explain this with a diagram. Right here we see general idea of the Samba server here, the shared folder and the printer. So you can connect to it from a Linux client or from a Windows client. And also there are the Samba ports. Good to take note of this as well. Samba uses 4 ports actually, from 137 to 139, 3 ports, and also port 445 is reserved for Samba. So now what I'm saying here is, as soon as you start a service on a server, user home folders become available to those users as shares. So, example, I've added user 621 to my Samba database, right? And now that I've started a Samba service, this means user 621 may go and from any of the machines somebody can connect to his home folder on the Samba server. So if your account is user 621, you may be sitting at a client machine here, and then with a Samba service running on a server, you'll be able to connect to your home folder using Samba. So that the home folder of the user is automatically made available to the user when you start the service. Of course, for the user to connect to it, you must have the user's password. I'm not saying it's publicly made available, but without any further configuration, as soon as you start a service, then users will be able to connect to their home folders using Samba. Users who are in the database of Samba. So let me show how it works. So now my service is running here. So I'll go to a client machine. I'll start with the CentOS client. First, I'll make sure I can ping the server. The IP of my server is 250. Oops, that's not I can ping it. Yeah, maybe it's because yesterday I changed the IP. Yeah, I know why, because this is the machine I used as a router yesterday, and not as a router, as a client for routing, and I think it's in the other range. So if I have config right at this point, it's in the 200 range, and my ETH0 is not active. So I'll dive down ETH1, I'll use ETH0. This way, it's always important to check you can ping or not. See, every day we're doing something different here. So IFAP ETH0. Okay, this is a DHCP based on my DHCP service is not running. So I'll manually configure ETH0 here. To switch a machine back to manual configuration, you put boot pro equal none. It's all you need to do. Yesterday it was on the DHCP. I'm putting it back to none. And this means the manual IP that I've done here will apply again. So very simple, right? When you want to switch to automatic mode, you put boot pro equal DHCP. And of course, you need DHCP server available in network, as we had done yesterday. If you want to switch back to manual IP configuration, you put boot pro equal none, and it will use the manual IP, which is down here. So now I see my IP. Right. A bit of a problem here, it doesn't show the IP now. Let me check again. The IP address is here. I'll look at IF down, IF up. All right, now I see it finally. So I'll be using this IP 100.60 on the client machine. And now I should be able to ping the Samba server. Yeah, this is probably because of VLANs I did yesterday. So they are on different VLANs. Let's check that. This is Samba server. This is VLAN 2. Although I don't need VLANs now, but it doesn't hurt as long as we put them on the same VLAN. So the first adapter is in VLAN 2 for the Samba server, and for my client, it has this adapter I'm using has no VLAN, so I'll put it on VLAN 2 as well. See, they're not on the same VLAN. They cannot communicate unless they have unless use router in between. Now finally I can ping. So you see, opportunity to mention this again. Since we're doing so many different things in this module there, you have to keep track of what's going on in your virtual machines. And when things don't work, review all the possible reasons. Now on top of the usual stuff, we also have VLANs we have configured. So many things we've been doing. So when things don't work, don't take anything for granted. Go back, check if you can ping, if there are any VLANs. Make sure everything is under control. For following? All right, so now the client can ping the server. I remember on the server, the Samba service is running. Here we go. And I've added earlier user 621 to my Samba database. Let's show it again. I have not done any further configuration yet. I've just added the user to the database and I've started Samba service. That's enough for what I'm about to show. So now back to the client. What I'll do here, I'll just type the command SMB client. This is to connect to a share from the client to the server. So now I'm on a client machine here, and I'll connect to the home folder of user 621 on the server. So SMB client, you put 2 slashes, the IP or hostname of the server, and then /homes with an S. I'll explain, and minus uppercase U, user 621. So let's explain this command. So I'm on a client machine. I'm typing the SMB client command to connect to a share. I identify the server by its IP or host name. And now, after the slash here, you type the share name, the name of the share to which you want to connect. And homes is a default share. You don't create a share, it's there by default. Homes, it's simply a share name for a user's home folder. So every user who's in the Samba database will have access to his home folder on a server by typing homes as a shared name. And then -u followed by the name of the user will connect to the Samba server. So this again has to be a user that is in the Samba database on a server. This user does not have to be on a client machine. The client machine has no user 621 or doesn't need to have user 621. The user is on the server. Don't get confused about this, all right? User 621 is on the server. Who's logged into the client machine is irrelevant. I am logged in as root on a client machine right now. But when I connect to my share on the server, in this case, to the home folder of the user, I specify a user account, which is a valid Samba user on the server. So user 621 on the server is part of the Samba database. Just as when you connect to a share between two Windows machines, what do? You get proxy for an element password. You type an element password that is on the server, not on the client. Same idea here. So the password of the user. And there we go. I've just connected to the user's home folder. And when I do ls, I see this is the contents of the user's home folder. Even if you don't type -a there, it shows the hidden files. So most of the files are hidden, right? Start with a dot. So this is the home folder of user 621 on the server. Any questions? Now, what do you do once you connect to the share? The most typical thing you do is to download or upload files. And, well, the commands to download or upload are exactly the same as in SFTP. We have seen SFTP earlier, right? So it will be the exact same commands to download or upload files using Samba. It might seem redundant, but each protocol has its use. FTP is typically used on the internet or in large enterprise networks for file transfers. Samba is used within a local network, but they have similarities in terms of the commands to upload or download files. So let's say I'd like to download one of the files here, such as bash history. I'm going to download the file .bash history. So it will come on its client machine, of course. Now let's first decide where to download it on the client machine. I'll open another terminal to check my local directories. Well, I have this test2 directory, right? What do I have in this test2 directory right now? I'm on a client machine here. This is where I have. I'll do ls-a. Is there any hidden files? So I do not have bash history in this directory. So I'll download it from the Samba server, .bash history. So I'll choose my local directory first by typing lcd. Remember the SFTP command, it's a review at the same time as SFTP. So lcd test2. So this chooses the local directory on the client. And then to download the file, I'll just do get with a file name which is .bash history. So now if I check on a client machine ls-a again, so I see .bash history has been downloaded. So again, what happened here exactly? I am on a client machine and I downloaded. First, I connected using SMB client to the home folder of user 621 on the server, and then I downloaded a file to the client machine. What if I'd like to upload a file? My LCD being still test2. Let's say I would like to upload the file IP info. So remember the put command, put IP info. So it reads from the local directory test2 and uploads it to the share I'm connected to on a server, which is the user's home directory. So if I do ls again, I'm going to do ls, it shows what's in the share. I'll wait a few seconds. You're taking notes of the commands. So now I see IP info here. It's just been uploaded to the server Sunday, June 13 at 9:02. Okay. So really, it's the same command as in SFTP. You may also use mget or mput, remember with the asterisk there, to do multiple download or uploads at once. So again, if you have any questions, you may ask. So I'll exit this connection now. Next, I'll show the same thing from a Windows client. Now, in other words, from the Windows 10 client, I'll connect to the home folder of user 621 on the Linux machine. So here's the Windows 10 client. First, I'll make sure I can ping the server. Again, you never know with everything I did yesterday, VLANs and so on. I'm not sure. So, okay, this one can ping it right away. So I'll just connect it like I do to any other shares. I'll go to File Manager and type the path here. In Windows, you type 2 backslashes, the IP or host name of the server. Now, I'll make a new session, all right, because this is another user who was already connected there, who's logged in. So I'll log out and log in again and do it again so you can see the whole thing by entering a name and password. So I'll sign out from my Windows session. This is a fresh session now. So I'll do the same thing again. So this is the IP of the server. You see it prompts me for a name and password. So I will enter user 621. So there we go. It shows, in fact, all the shares available on the Samba server. But so far, I talked only about the user's home folder, which appears here, user 621. And I see the file IP info I just uploaded earlier. And if I want to see the hidden files, I'll display the files here with extensions as well. Here we go. So it's automatic. There's nothing additional to configure for it to work from Windows. It's the same SMB protocol. And of course, around download or upload as well, you may do it by copy and paste in Windows, right? You may copy a file from here and paste it to Windows local directory, or you may copy a file from a Windows local directory and paste it here. And by the way, uploads and downloads usually require appropriate permissions, right? Especially when you upload something, in order to be able to upload to a share, you must have the permission to write into that share. So in this case, it works without any further configuration because the user has connected to his home folder and the user has all the permissions to write into his home folder. That's why the put command worked with no issues there, because it uses home folder. So no questions yet, we're okay? So we've just seen how to connect to use home folder from CentOS or Windows client machines using the Samba protocol. All right, so again, the question, how to make user home folder shared. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to do anything. When you start the Samba service, let's go and quickly review that again. I didn't share it myself, right? I didn't do anything. All I did on the server so far was this. I just started the Samba service. See, you gotta check the status, it was already running, but the first time you start it, you just start the Samba service. And of course, you also have to add users to the database. My user 621 is part of the Samba database. That's why I added earlier PDB edit to show again the database. PDB edit. So I added earlier my user 621 to the database. So that's all you need. You add a user to the database, you start the Samba service on a server, and automatically it makes home folders of users available as shared objects to those users only, not publicly. So when user 621 connects to Samba share and types his name and password, then his home folder is available. It's shared. So that's the meaning of going back to the client machine. See, what did I type here to log in? Here's the command. The share name homes refers to a user's home folder, and Samba makes it available automatically to valid users. But now that's actually a good question here because it's a transition. Next, we'll see now how to create other shares, and this I'll have to configure. The home folder is an exception, but in general, when you think about sharing files and printers there, we think about more than just home folders, right? So next step, it will be now up to me to go on the server and share whatever I want as a folder. So back to the server. So to share things in general, on the server again, we go to the directory etc Samba. And there is the file smb.conf, which is the main configuration file of Samba. It's a large file. We don't need to edit every detail, but it's a good idea to save a backup copy of it before you edit it. So most of the time when you open this file, you don't need to do anything in the first part. You go to the second part of the file. I'll show you where it is. So it has many sections, but if you keep on scrolling down, here you have the section called Share Definitions. So that's where we deal with sharing in particular. And right away here we see, now we understand better. See, this share here is there by default. I repeat, this one here, I did not create myself. It is automatically provided by the Samba service. And this is the reason why users can connect to their home directories. So you can see here in square brackets, you see the shared name homes. And this is special syntax here through which the home directory of the user is made available to that user. So this is something you leave it as it is. You don't edit it. I'm just showing it just to understand better that the sharing of the home folder is automatic. It's done by the service. But now I like to share folders of my choice. So that's why you go to the end of this section. And I have a few examples here. So we'll look at this example. New share. So the objective of this now is to share a folder which is new share. Maybe I'll first show you the actual folder itself. I'll exit this for a moment. So on this server, I have under the slash a directory named new share. Here it is. And now I like to share this to make it available with Samba. What does it contain? I put a number of files there. Just an example. I've made this directory new share under the slash. I've copied some files in it. And now I like to share it with Samba so that users from in the network may connect to it. Back to smb.conf. Of course, I have added this section. It's automatic here, right? I have added this section myself. You have to type all the lines here. So let's go over it. Take notes because you have to type these lines. So first, in square brackets, you put the share name, new share. Just like in Windows, when you share a folder, this is the share name. It may or may not be the same as the actual folder name. Most of the time, we use the same as a folder name, but it doesn't have to be. The folder name is new share, but I could have called it something else. I could have called it, Apple. It doesn't matter. But this is the name by which clients in the network will be able to connect to this share. So you put in square brackets. Now, next line I have path equals / new share. So this is the actual path and name of the folder on the server. So this is what I'm sharing. I'm sharing the folder / new share, and I'm sharing it with the share name new share. Now, next line, public equal yes. This may seem a bit confusing, so let's make sure I understand well. Public equal yes, what does it mean? It doesn't mean that it will support anonymous connections, public. It means any valid Samba users may connect to this share, but the user still needs to be part of the Samba database on the server. So I repeat, public equal yes means that any valid Samba users who are on the server are allowed to connect to this share. See, the next line I have disabled it because the square sign disables it, so for now you can ignore it. We'll come back to it later. So for now, this line valid users is disabled. I could remove it, nothing will change. So in fact, when you put public equal yes, you don't use the line valid users. Then the last two lines, writable equal yes. This is about permissions. Obviously, writable equal yes means you're allowed to write into this share. If you put writable equal no, it will be read-only. It's something important. I'll come back to it just a little bit later on how to manage permissions. And the last line is a bit of a dummy line, but it's important to put it. Printable equal no. Why do we put this line? Because as you'll see later, when you create printer shares, at first glance, they will look similar to folder shares in this file. So this kind of line, printable equal no, is a quick way to identify the fact that this is not a printer, this is a folder. You see, down here I have another share which is a printer, and for that I put printable equal yes. So printable equal no, I repeat it simply to make it clear that this is a folder, not a printer that is being shared. So look at it again. Any questions on this section here? Again, the line with valid users with square sign, ignore it for now. The square sign means it is disabled. So you have all the other lines. You have new share, path, public equal yes, writable equal yes, and printable equal no. Any questions on these lines? So time to give it a try. Since public is equal to yes, as I said earlier, it means any valid Samba user should be able to connect to this share, and that includes user 621. So I'll go to a client machine. Starting with the CentOS client. So the command will be similar, SMB client, but now instead of putting /homes, I'll put /new share. This is the share name I'm trying to connect to. And user 621 again. So there we go. And now if I do ls, I see the contents of that share. These are the files that I've copied into that share. See, on the server there. If I check what's in that, actually these are the files. In new share. See, I'll show you including the hidden files there. So I'll go back to new share. I'll do ls-a to see hidden files. So these are the files I have there. And these are exactly the files I'm experiencing now through my connection. I'll also do it from the Windows client. So again, to avoid any confusion, I'll open a fresh session in Windows so you can see who's the user logging in to the Samba share. So I'll log out and log in again. So user 621. So there we go, I see the folder new share. See, since I put only the IP of the server and nothing else, it shows all the shares available on the server. If I were to be more specific, I could put after the IP backslash the share name new share. It will open only that share. Here we go. No questions? We're okay? All right. Now let's talk about public equal yes or no. I'll go back to the server. I am on a server here. And for this, I will need at least 2 user accounts, which are valid right now. So let me review my database again. PDB edit -L. This morning I added user 621. And let's say I'll also use Bird as a user, who's already in the database. But it's been a long time I haven't used this account, so maybe I forgot the password. So I'll reset the password. And you can, for users who's already in the database, you can simply reset the password by adding him again. So if I want just to reset the password here, I'll do SMB password -A, Bird. So as it is now, Bird should be able to connect to the share because it's public equal yes. So I'll verify that. So I'll just change the username from user 621 to Bird. And I connect to the share. So this is again the meaning of public equal yes. See, I'll go back to smb.conf. So because I have public equal yes here, it means any users on a server that are part of the Samba database are allowed to log into this share. And now I'll change that. So before I change, if you have any questions, let me know. So now I'll make it more restrictive. And for that, you put public equal no. Now it means it may not be enough for a user to be part of the database, because only specific users will be allowed to connect to this share. And when you put public equal no, then on the next line, you put the line valid users and you specify who's allowed to log into this share. It may be one or many users. Well, of course, the users must still be part of the database, but now let's say you have 20 users in the database, but you want only 3 of them to connect to this share. So you put only those 3 users as valid users. So in this example, I will limit it to user 621. If you want many users, as you have, because earlier you can put space in our user, space in our user, etc. So now I'm limiting it to user 621, and this means Bird will not be able to connect to this share. Okay. So I'll save and exit the file, and I'll need to restart the Samba service. Every time you edit this file, don't forget to restart the Samba service. Again, don't get confused with client and server. You deal with the Samba service only on the server. The client doesn't need to restart or anything about the Samba service, okay? The client could also be Windows, right? So the client it's only on the server that you manage the service. So now back to the client. So earlier, I logged in as Bird, right? If I try Bird again, I'm typing right password, and it doesn't let me log in because I'm no longer a valid user for this share. For this share, see, Bird may still connect to its own folder. See, if I change to homes, it works no problem. This is now the home folder of Bird. But for the new share in particular, Bird has been disallowed. But user 621 should still be able to connect because he is a valid user. Sorry, I tapped Bird and user 621. Okay. There we go. So you see the meaning of public equal yes, no, and valid users. Any questions there? I'll go on the server and show the configuration again. Here we go. So if I want to add Bird here, no problem. After user 621, I may put space Bird, and then restart the service, of course, and Bird will again be able to connect to the share. So the next thing we'll deal with permissions. I'll pause a few seconds to take notes and again see if you have any questions. Also in the lecture notes I have a summary of what's going on here, so download, upload, Linux Windows clients. Allow deny specific users, as we just did. So next we'll be dealing with permissions. So what do I mean by permissions? Now, usually when user connects to a share, the main objective will be either to download files or upload files. Unless all you want to do is to connect and see the contents or maybe read the file without downloading it. But in general, you want to download or upload files. So downloading usually, if you're able to log into the share, unless the file you're trying to download has special permission there, usually downloading is allowed. So let me again do an example. Now, to download, I'll connect Azure 621 again to the share. Where am I here? And this is the client machine. I'll do fresh connection. So again, I'll download something to my test2 directory on the client machine. SMB client to new share. And as an example, I will download the file RPC to the test2 directory. I have already one RPC, so I'll download something I don't have there. I don't have host name here, so I'll download the file host name. So get host name. First, I'll do my LCD command to specify where the node will go. So LCD test2, and then get host name. And if I do ls here in test2, I see that host name has just been downloaded. Now, what about uploading? Any questions on downloading first? Now, let's say I'd like to upload the file, one of the files available here, one that doesn't exist there. Let me see. Again, I'll do IP info. There's no IP info file in this new share folder. So I'll try to upload IP info from test2 of the client machine to this share on the server. So to upload, I'll use the put command again, put IP info, and it works. All right, so it worked. I was able to upload, and when I do ls, we see now IP info that has just been uploaded at 9:37. If it worked, that's because I already configured enough permissions for it. And now we're going to go and see more details about this. What permission you need to give exactly in order for an upload to work. Here's the command again, put IP info. So now this is a very important discussion on permissions. And let's also keep the diagram in mind. So what I'm doing from a client machine, I'm uploading a file to a network share. And when it comes to permissions in a scenario like this, it's the exact same ideas as in Windows. It is universal. That's very important to understand as well. So what are the required permissions when you upload something, when you write something from a client machine into a network share? There are two levels of permissions, or maybe two layers, I should say. First, you have the inherent permissions of the folder itself. The folder itself on the server has a local permission based on chmod, right? Or just like in Windows, you have a security tab. So that's regardless of sharing or not. A folder has its local permissions that you control using the chmod command. And you can never ignore those permissions. On top of it, since we're doing a network operation here, the network service that you're using, in this case Samba, also has its own permissions. That's the second layer. And then the total permission of the user when accessing that share will be the combination of the local permissions based on chmod and the network permission based in this case on Samba. And whichever of the two is more restrictive will prevail. I repeat, one is not more important than the other. The question is, which of the two is more restrictive? And that one will have the final word. It will prevail. If the chmod permission is more restrictive, that will be it. If the share permission based on Samba is more restrictive, that will be it. Another way to explain this, I think it helps to understand. You may think of this as two gates. You're trying to access a room somewhere, but you have to go through two gates before getting to that room. There are two doors to unlock. If you unlock only one of them, it's not enough. The other door will block you. So both gates have to be open before you can access that room. One gate is the one provided by the chmod command, local permissions. The other gate is the one provided by a network permission, in this case Samba. If one of the two is closed, that's it, you can't access that room. Both have to be open for you, or you must have the key to open both gates. Clear enough? So now, with this in mind, let's look at those permissions in more detail. So we're able to upload, right? Now let's find out why. So I'll go on the server again. And I'll start with the first layer, which is the local chmod permission of this folder. This is the client, actually. So I'll go on the server. So you see local chmod permissions. I'll go to the slash, that's where the new share folder is located. Now do ls-l. So new share, and you see I've given permissions here which are read, write, execute, read, execute, read, write, execute. So almost all users have the right permission on chmod, except for the members of the new GRP group, which is the owning group here. but everybody else have the right permission. So this gate is open to most users. And then let's look at the other layer, the second layer, which is provided by the Samba service in this case. So for that, I'll go to smb.conf again. And this is the meaning of writable equal yes. Writable equal yes means Samba is saying the door is open for his share, you can write. So we see that both gates are open. That's why I were able to upload. Questions on this? And now to help understand better, I'll close one gate at a time. I'll start with this. So I'll turn it to writable equal no. So now Samba is saying no. He cannot write into his share. But chmod is still open. I'm not changing chmod yet. So from point of view of chmod, yes, you can write, but Samba is saying you cannot write. So I restart my service here. And go back and try to upload again. So I'll pick another file to upload. I'll create a new file here and upload it, right? I'll try to upload it. So I'll create a file. Hello. So in test2 now I have this hello file. I'll try to upload it to the Samba share. So I'll do again LCD test2 and put hello. It didn't let me. No surprise, because now the second gate is closed. The first gate is still open. The chmod gate is open, but the Samba permission gate is closed now. Writable equal no. So I cannot upload. What I'll do next, I'll go ahead and open this gate again, but I'll close the other one. So how do I close this gate? Sorry, how do I open this gate? Back to smb.conf. And I'll put it back to writable equal yes. And restart a service. But now I'll close the chmod gate. So as it is now again, new share has its permissions. I'll remove the W here, the right. Only the owner. Okay, let me do it first and then we'll check again. So to remove this W, I'll change it to 755, default directory permissions. So I'll do chmod 755 new share. Now root is the only user, who has write. Nobody else can write into this folder. So this closes the first gate in terms of writing. Now, at this point, I don't need to restart a service, right? It will be a waste of time, because by doing chmod change here, I did not change anything for Samba. You restart a Samba service only when you edit smb.conf. So now back to the client. So I'll do the same thing again, LCD test, test 2, yes. And again, I'll try to upload the file created, which was hello. So still I cannot do it. I just switched the two gates. Earlier, the first one was open, the second one was closed. Now I did the opposite. I closed the first one and opened the second. I still cannot upload. It doesn't matter which one is closed. If one of them is closed, it will not work. Both gates have to be open for the upload to work. Are you following? So now I will make it work. So back to the server. Now I'll make sure both gates will be open. So here, I'll put the X back. For new share, I'll change back to 757. George can also put 777, but 757 is enough in this example. So now, most users have write again. And I'm keeping the Samba permissions also as they were, so let's quickly revisit that. So writable equal yes. So now both gates are open. So same thing again, LCD. And put hello. So now it works. I just uploaded the hello file. Just wait a few seconds if you're taking notes. This will scroll down the screen. So the file has been uploaded here at 9:50. So this is really very important discussion to understand the permissions well. If you have any questions, go ahead. So allow, deny, upload permissions to specific users. No questions? Now let's look into one more detail about this. Back to the server. So I'm keeping writable equal yes. And back to the chmod permissions. See, in this example, I'm using 757 as a permission. It means members of the owning group don't have the right permission. Who's the owning group? It's a group called new group new GRP. Now, who are the members of this group? Let's check. I'll check the group file. Lots of groups here. Looking for new GRP. Here we go. Right now, there's nobody in the group new GRP. There's no members. So what if I add user 621 to this group as a member? That's what's going to happen to the permissions. Okay. So it's a bit of a review at the same time. How do you add a user to a group? There's more than one way, but we can use the gpassword command, right? So I'll put gpassword user 6 minus a user 621 to the group new GRP. As a result, slowing down a bit so you can take notes, although it's a review command, but yeah, it's always good to take notes. So as a result of this, the new GRP now has user 621 as a member. Now I'll go back to the client and try again to do an upload as user 621. I'll create another file in this test directory. This time I'll call it hi. And I'll try to upload the file hi. So LCD test 2. It didn't work this time. Why? Because I've added user 621 to the group new GRP. And on the server, new GRP is the owning group of the folder, and the owning group members do not have the permission to write. So you see, this closes the gate to user 621. It closes the second gate. Or sorry, the first gate, whatever, first or second, doesn't matter. So it closed the gate of the chmod permissions. The other gate is still open. I see a writable equal yes in smb.conf, but that's not enough. You also need this gate to be open. And by adding the user to the new GRP group, who's the owning group here, the gate has been closed. This is a very good example again. I hope you're following and taking notes. It's almost break time if you have any questions here. So we finished an important section here on sharing, sharing a folder, including permissions to upload or not. After the break, we'll do mapping, Samba share, and then sharing a printer. So if you don't have any questions now, we'll take our break, and the lecture will resume at 10:15. As usual, be on time. At 10:15, I will continue lecture. Hello, we're back. So the lecture will resume in a few seconds. All right, so the next thing is about mapping a Samba share. And you've probably seen this concept in Windows before, and that's where I start from, to be in familiar territory. So first do it from Windows client, and then we'll see what's the corresponding way of doing it in CentOS. So I'll go to the Windows client and connect to the, first verify again I can connect to the share. I'll once again open a fresh session so we don't get confused with authentication there. So earlier, to connect to the share from Windows, what I did, I went to File Manager, and I typed the path, right? 2 backslashes, the IP of the server, and then I connect to the share. But now instead of doing this, I will map it. As you probably know, mapping means, in Windows, creating a local drive, or what looks like a local drive, a drive leader, that will act as a pointer to the share. So to do that on Windows 10 machine, you click on this PC, and in the menu you have computer, and under the computer item here you have add or map network drive. And here is where I will type the path. And the drive leader will be Z by default. You may change that. Let's say in this example, I'll put T. So the path will be the IP of or hostname of the server. And specifically, I want to map now the share called new share. I will not do reconnected signing because otherwise later on it might keep on asking us. See, next time I'll be doing our lab, and I don't want to be prompted again for this Samba share. So I'll not reconnected signing. But if you want to make this like on a regular basis permanent, then it's a good idea to click on reconnected sign-in. So I'll authenticate as user 621. It has to be valid user for his share. And there we go. It opened it actually here. And it's been mapped as drive T, meaning from this point on, if I want to access this share, I'll just click on the drive leader T here. It looks like as if it were a local resource now, but this is just a pointer to give me access to that share on the network. So it doesn't keep on asking authentication either. I authenticate it when I create the map, and then later on, I just click on drive leader to access the share. Right? If you have any questions on this mapping from a Windows client. You can at any time disconnect the map, either from nearby right-clicking and disconnect, or you can do it from the menu disconnect network drive. And how would you do this from a centralized client? Something equivalent to it, to make it easier to access a share, to make it look like it were a local resource, instead of every time typing the SMB client command. So as you know, in Linux there are no drive letters, but the equivalent thing is mounting. We have done mounting already at least twice. The first time it was in the previous module. The first time we did mounting was to access the DVD, and then we also used mounting when we created or managed volumes, right? When you added the hard disk and created new volumes on it, then we had to mount them. So the same idea will apply when it comes to mapping network share on a centralized client. Let's do it. I'll go to my client machine. Now, where to create a mount point? See if you, I'm sure you remember in the previous module, we used the media directory to create mount points for things like the DVD or hard disk volumes. So this is the recommended directory for mounting hardware devices. But when it comes to mapping network shares, another directory is recommended, because these ones here in media are referred to as hard mount points for hardware. But then you have the MNT directory for soft mount points. See, under the slash there you have the MNT directory. So this is recommended directory to use for mounting or mapping network shares. So I'll start by creating a directory there. It's empty initially. Now the name you give to your mount again it's your choice. But to avoid any confusion here, I'll give you the same name as the share, new share. So mkdir, new share. And it's an empty directory. Of course, I have no intent to save anything in this. I'll just use it as a pointer to access the share. And now I'll use the mount command, similar to what we have seen in the previous module, to mount this network share. So I'll type mount. So it follows the same logic as in the previous module. When you mount something, first you specify the source. Like if it was a device, let's say a DVD, you put device DVD and then a mount point. So in this case, or device CD-ROM and then a mount point. So in this case, the source is not a hardware device, it is a network share. So I'll put the path to it. New share. And then the mount point, which is MNT new share. Now I'll tell you right away, as I press enter, this will not work this will not work as it is. But then I'll fix it. I'll tell you why it will not work. But at least you see already the idea and the syntax. So I'm trying now to mount this share into my mount point MNT new share. You see now it's asking the password for root. Root, it means root on the server. I will type the right password and I'll explain more about why it's asking for root. I did type the right password, it's taking me permission denied, and no surprise here. Why? Because root, as it is now, is not a valid user for this share. See, when it comes to network operation, you cannot simply assume that root can do anything. In this case, for Samba, root is just another user, and I have not added root as a valid user for my Samba share. That's why it's blocking me. But then you might say, why it's asking the password for root? Because the way I'm using this mount command right now in this module, in this form, right, where I did not specify username in the command itself, it will assume root by default. So it means for this to work now, I will have to add root as a valid user to my Samba share. I'll go and do that. You're following? So what does it mean to add root as a valid user? First, I have to make sure root is part of the database of the Samba users. Again, that's not something to be taken for granted. By default, it is not. I do pdb edit -l. Sorry, this is on the client. On the server, so pdb edit -l. You see, I've added root already, but the first time you have to add it, initially the database is empty, there's nobody there. So I've added root like any other users, meaning I've done already SMB password -a root. You have to do this if you want root to act as a Samba user. And then you type and retype root password. And then we also need to make sure that root is a valid user for this share. Meaning, I'll go back to smb.conf. And since I have public equal no, right now, the only valid user is user 621. So it means if I want to be able to mount the share with that option there, I'll have to add root as a valid user here. Or if it was public equal yes, it'll also work since root is part of the database. But in this scenario now with public equal no, I have to make sure that root is part of the valid users. So I'll save and restart the service. Restart. And now I'll try it again, mounting. So here's the command that failed earlier on the client machine. So now it worked, no error messages. Let's not get confused again. Which password did I type here? It is the password of root on the server, not on the client. Now, what's the result of this? See, you might say, what worked? What? We don't see anything. Well, what was the whole point of this? To create a mount point. Meaning now, if I go to new share here under MNT, and I do ls, it shows me the contents of that share. These files are not on this machine, on this client machine. I've never copied. This directory I just created 2 minutes ago. It's empty. But now it's acting as a pointer to give me access to the contents of that share. Just as in Windows, drive T gives me access to the contents of the share. It's the same thing. It's a mapping. It's a mount point. Right, any questions here? You see, if I unmount it, what's going to happen? Let's say you don't unmount it while you're in it, so I'll go one step higher in the hierarchy and unmount it. So you mount MNT new share. And now if I go back there and do ls, I don't see anything because the directory itself is empty. It's just, but when you mount it, it acts as a pointer to give you access to that network share. Any questions? Now, the way I use this command again, see, is a special way of using it. I did not specify a user account in my command. That's why it assumed root here. Is there a way that you can, within the command, specify the user account? In other words, is there a way they can mount it while using an account other than root? The answer is yes, but I'm not covering it now in this lecture or in this module. You may, if you have time, you're motivated, you may go online and check for the answer, but it's something you may come back to in the last module when we do the Linux project in module number 5. So for now, as a requirement is in this module, I'm limiting it to this form and where you enter the password of the root user on the server. So that's the part on mounting. Again, I'll pause a little bit if you have any questions, because next we'll deal with printer sharing. So we just covered mapping Samba share on both Windows and CentOS clients. I'll be back in just a few seconds. I'll check something for my lecture notes and I'll be back. I'll just stop sharing for a moment there. Okay, so again, before I start printer sharing, any questions? Okay, so for the rest of this lecture, we'll do with sharing printers using Samba. The first thing is to make sure we do have a local printer on the server. That's something we have seen in the previous module, right? You may use an existing local printer, you may install a new one. So on the server, to verify that, you go, here's the server. So you run the command system config printer. Usually it's faster than this, what's going on here. And normally it goes much faster. I see if I go on a different machine system. But I'm doing it on server now. It's a bit strange. I just jumped here. I'll open your terminal. Let me see if the printer service is running here. Okay, I think this server needs a reboot here. It's been a while. Okay, it's user 351 logged in on top of it. All right, let me first exit this and reboot this server. All right, so I'm rebooting here. Good time again to ask any questions you might have. By the way, I'd like to remind you that check the schedule of the semester and of this module. There are some holidays coming, right? So next week we do have class. That's not week number 4 of this module. But in the following 2 weekends, there will be no classes. Those are official holidays. So just check the schedule all the dates are there. So week 5, which is the exam week, will be after those 2 holiday weekends. All right, so I'll start first my Samba service, or yeah. So again, I'll first like to verify any printers which are locally installed on this server. So hopefully the command will work now. Here we go. And see, I've already a few printers installed here, Canon 55i and Citizen 2. To remind you, I mean, this is something we have done in module 1. You just click on Add and follow the simple wizard there to install a local printer. And then we're going to share it, okay? So in case you forgot this, just review your notes in module 1, but it's very simple wizard to follow. So I have installed 2 of them on this server, Canon 55i and Citizen 2. And now what's new here in this module is to make this printer, one of these printers available. So the idea is to make one of these 2 printers available as a shared printer to network users using Samba. So for this, I'll go to smb.conf. And you see in the end, here's my example. I have added a printer share. So the share name is Canon. This is for a printer, Canon 550i. So just like in the case of a folder, in square brackets, you put the share name that you want to use for this printer. So network users will simply see that with the name Canon. Now for a path, I'll modify this example for now. I'll start with something simpler there. I'll explain what the path means in a moment there. So I'll type here var spool samba. I'll explain. So first of all, what does path mean for a printer? For a folder, of course, path is the location and name of the folder that you're sharing. For a printer, that's something else. For a printer, the path represents the spool directory. You all remember what spooling means for a printer, right? It's a queue in which print jobs documents are put in a sort of a waiting line in a queue before they are sent one by one to the print device. So the initial recommended spool directory for a Samba printer is this one, var spool Samba, which exists already. I have not created this directory myself, so I'll show you in a moment there. So this is already available in the system, var spool Samba, as a directory to be used for spooling in relation to Samba printers. And then printer is the actual printer name. So I just showed you 2 minutes ago. On this server, I have the printer Canon 55i, which is already installed as a local printer. So this is the local printer that I'm sharing now as Canon. Now the rest is similar to a folder. Public equal no or public equal yes, and you put valid users. So to start with, I'll put public equal yes, and then I'll disable the valid users line. So this means any valid Samba users can use this printer. And next 2 lines are again some dummy lines just to identify this share easily as a printer. Just as in the case of a folder share, we said printable equal no, and this makes it clear that this is a folder, not a printer. Likewise here, we put these 2 lines to make it clear that this share is a printer and not a folder. Printable equal yes, and browsable equal no, because it's not the directory that you can browse. It's just a printer. So have a look again at these slides if there's anything not clear before I show how to print a document. So remember, you must have a printer already installed. So initially on the server, if you don't have a printer yet, you run system config printer, you run the wizard, and you install a printer. That's how I got my Canon 555 from. Okay. This Canon 55i is a local printer that I've already installed on this server. We've done that in module 1. So as usual, you save the file and restart the service. And now from client machines, I should be able to send print jobs to this Samba server. So I'll go to a client machine. I'll start with the CentOS client. And you connect to the printer the same way as we did for a folder, meaning the SMB client command. And this time you put the shared name of the printer, meaning Canon. And since I put public equal yes, then any users are valid users. So I'll put user 621 again. So I'm connected to it. So what do I do next? Now this is not a folder. There's no point doing ls or trying to use get or put. Those are commands for folders. It's just a printer. So the whole idea is to send a print job to it, to print a document. And this is very simple now. It can't get any simpler than this. To print a document, you just type the print command. Print, and you put the file name you want to print. Let's say I'm going to print etc hosts. Meaning the local host file of this client now will be printed to this network printer shared by Samba. And when you get this sort of output here, it means it worked. There's no error message. It's showing you number of bytes per second and so on. It is clear how to print. Now, if you want to verify on the server that everything went fine, how do we do that? Here we know from a client that the print job has been sent. Now let's go on the server. Now, we'll go to the spool directory. Where was the spool directory? As you know, it's in var spool. And that's where you have the Samba subdirectory. Again, it's there by default. I didn't create this one myself. Right? It's a default directory. And that's what I specified as my spool directory for a shared printer, var spool Samba. However, when I check what's in there, you see I'm in var spool Samba now. It's empty. Or there is actually one file, but this is not the file I sent there. Because what happens is when you send a print job to a Samba printer and the spool directory is var spool Samba, yes, it goes through this, but it doesn't stay there. Very fast, as the server receives the file in this directory, from here it will move it to the local spool directory, which is, as you remember from the previous module, var spool cups. So in the end, that's where you should find the file, not in var spool Samba, but in var spool cups. So it transitions from var spool Samba to var spool cups very fast. So if I check in var spool cups, so that's where I am now, var spool cups. If I do ls minus l to see the dates and everything here. So you see, at 10:52, 2 minutes ago, on June 13, a new job was sent, the data file and the control file. The other files are older control files. Okay. So these are the two new files just appeared there, data file and control file of the print job I sent 2 minutes ago. So I'm checking this on the server. I sent the print job from a client machine, and I check it on a server. Any questions? Now, before I continue with the SAMBAP share there, let's look at something interesting here. I'm back to the spool directory var spool, and I'll do ls minus L. See, the var spool SAMBA directory, which is used for the spooling, it has some special permissions. You look at this. That's why the colors are also different. Again, I keep on repeating. These are default settings. I did not change anything on this directory. The system has created this directory and assigned its permissions. And look at the permissions. It's like 777, isn't it? It's rare to see this. And what's the T in the end? Remember this? What is this lowercase t in the end? Anyone remembers? When you see lowercase t and the last character of the permissions, what does it mean? First, lowercase means that behind it there is X. So it's really 777 as permissions. If it was uppercase, it would mean that there is no X behind it. But what does T mean? Okay, no one seems to remember or willing to give the answer here. So I'll give it. So T means the sticky bit is enabled. This was something covered in the previous module. The sticky bit is enabled on this folder. It's a good example of a sticky bit. What does a sticky bit do, and why is it enabled here? What the sticky bit does is to prevent users from deleting contents in this directory, except if they are the owner of files. In other words, with the sticky bit being on, only the owner of a file can delete that file within this directory. So here's the scenario then. Permissions are 777. So it means all users can modify contents within this directory. However, because of the sticky bit being on, they cannot delete anything unless it is their files, unless they are the owners. So does it make sense for what we're doing here? It does, because this is the spool directory for a network printer. So you need users to be able to write into it, otherwise they will not be able to send their print jobs. When they send their print jobs, then they need to write into this directory to put their print jobs there. That's why it's 777. But at the same time, you don't want any users to delete print jobs that have been sent by other users. That's why we have a sticky bit. So yes, it allows users to send their jobs, but it prevents them from deleting jobs sent by other users, because they are not the owners of files sent by other users. So they can delete only their own files, not other people's files. So it's a very good example of the use of the sticky bit. Any questions there? All right, so now you can continue with our share, connecting and printing to the share. I'll go back to smb.conf. So in the first example there, I put public equal yes, and that's why I didn't use any valid users. But then I'll change this, so it's similar to a folder. I'll put public equal no, and then I'll need to enable a valid users line. So if I limit it again to user 621, well, I'll put two users now as a first. I'll put user 621 and bird. So both users should be able to send print jobs. So it's really the same logic as in the case of a folder. So I restart a service. Now verify that both users can indeed send jobs. So start with user 621 again, just as before. And I'll print this time just an error file such as etc hostname. It works. So you can easily monitor on the server, see the result. So if I go back to virus full caps, that's where it quickly it will move to this directory, virus full caps. So I see that at 11:03, a new file has been added here. The data file, the control file will be added just a little bit later. It's always like the timing it's a bit off. So first it puts the data file, and then a little bit later adds the control file. Now I'll do the same thing as the bird user. Either I mistyped the password or yeah. Okay, so now again I'll print a file. So it works. And if I check it again on the server, so now I see a new data file at 11:04. And the control file of the previous one is there now, 11:03. So both users are able to send print jobs as it is, because they are both valid users for each share. What if I try root? said I typed right password of root, but it did not work. Why? Should be obvious, because root is not a valid user. See? Although root is part of my Samba database on a server, but for its printer share, with public equal no, the only two valid users are user 621 and bird. If I want root to be able to print from a network to this share, I should add root here as a valid user. Any questions on this one? Now look at the next example. What I will do at this point, I will change the spool directory. You can do that. I mean, it's not like you have to keep the spool directory var spool samba. This is the initial recommended directory, but depending on the objective of who's going to use this printer, and as long as you know what you're doing, you may change this. So look what I will do now. I will change to the home directory of user 621. Does this make any sense? We'll discuss it, but first let's see the result of this. So I will save this and restart the service. So now let's see what's going to happen. See, I'll show again the file, I'll leave it open so we can interpret what's going on. So this is my configuration now. So I'll go to client machine and try to log in as user 621 and also as bird and see what happens. I'll start with user 621. This numlock, sorry. All right, so user 621, I'll try to print. It works, no problem. Why? Because for two reasons. User 621 is a valid user for his printer, and user 621 is able, of course, to send any document, in this case print jobs, to his home folder, which is the spool directory of this printer. Now let's try as bird, who's also a valid user. I can connect to the printer. I'm a valid user, so I connected to the printer. Now I try to print. I can't. Why? Because Bert does not have permissions to put anything in the home directory of user 621, which is the spool directory of this printer. So let's recap on this now. So for a user to be able to send a print job to this network printer, what are the requirements? First, the user must be a valid user for his share. See, earlier when I tried root, I couldn't even connect, right? Because root is not a valid user for his printer. So if you're not a valid user, you can't even connect to this share. But then even if you are a valid user, like Bird is a valid user, that may not be enough, because you also need appropriate permissions to send documents, meaning write, into the spool directory of this printer. And since I'm in the spool directory here, the home user of user 621, Bird cannot write into it and therefore cannot print. In the previous example, when the spool directory was var-spool samba, all valid users could print because var-spool samba has the permission 777 with a sticky bit. All right, so be aware of these levels of control. You must have a spool directory which makes sense for the objective of this share. So if I remove Bird there, now this makes sense because what I'm doing now in this example after removing Bird, user 621 is the only valid user. It's like a private printer for its user. I'm sharing this printer only for this user. Maybe he's the company's director or department manager or something. So this is a printer to be used only by this user. And now it makes sense to specify the home directory of the user as a spool directory, because nobody else has permissions to write into it, so it's perfect. It's a printer only for its user, and is the only one able to use a spool directory. If you have more than one valid users for a printer, then you must specify a directory into which all those users can write. So that's why we have var-spool samba in general with the permission 777 and a sticky bit on. All right, so again, if you have any questions at this point.